UFC Vegas 113, Bautista versus Oliveira was a banger. I'm going to recap every fight on the card. Let's get into it. Kicking things off, we had Claudia Sygula taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. And really, Sygula just styled on Cachoeira the whole time. She didn't even need to involve any wrestling. She just got it all done with the distance striking. She let the jab do the work for the most part, just popping Cachoeira in the face over and over again, making her all bloodied up. And Cachoeira just could not get anything going. I think the story of the fight was Sygula's footwork was just way too good. She was constantly moving off the center line. She was circling around the cage, and Cachoeira just did not have the footwork or any of the tools to really track her down and catch her with that power she has. Really, she just looked too stiff throughout the fight. She wasn't able to come even close to finding Sygula, really. So Sygula got way ahead on the significant strikes throughout the fight. And her cardio held up really well. I was impressed by that. You know, she was incorporating a lot of movement, but didn't seem to get tired over the course of 15 minutes. This was the only fight where I lost money. I had the under 2.5 because I thought Cachoeira could maybe catch her with something if the fight stayed on the feet for too long. And then, even though Sygula is not necessarily the most dangerous on the ground, let's be honest, if anyone gets on top of Cachoeira, she's going to be in trouble. It's just that Sygula didn't need to take the fight to the ground, and honestly, I think she would have struggled a bit if she wanted to, because Cachoeira definitely has a physicality advantage. But Sygula gets this one done. I'm looking forward to seeing what she does next because she's still young. She's still training at American Top Team, so she can make all kinds of improvements still. Good stuff in this fight from her. Next up with the men's bantamweights, we've got Gafurov versus Jacoby Wiklacz, and this one's just hilarious. So the first round between these two was actually very close. It was primarily just striking. Wiklacz was throwing a lot of volume. He was throwing a lot of front kicks and 1-2s. He actually caught Gafurov quite a bit with the right hand. However, as we know, Gafurov has more power, and overall he landed the most impactful strikes in the round. So most people gave that first round to Gafurov. Now, round 2, that was all Wiklacz. He really started to engage the grappling. He really didn't even have to try a lot of takedowns. He just sort of let Gafurov initiate the wrestling for him. And then, again, once they get on the ground, you know Wiklacz is going to be the better grappler. And he really took advantage of that, got on top quite a bit. Toward the end of the round, he actually was in position to land a rear naked choke, potentially. Couldn't get Gafurov out of there, though, in round number 2. Now, round 3, that's where the hilarity comes into play. So Gafurov is doing well. For most of round 3, it was his best round in the entire fight. He was doing a lot of damage with body shots that seemed to be slowing Wiklacz down. Then the hilarious part comes in at the very end of the round. For no reason, no good reason whatsoever, Gafurov, he fires in on a takedown. Why would you do that? And of course, Wiklacz just wraps up his neck because we know the guillotine is kind of his go-to jiu-jitsu move. He wraps up the guillotine, ends up on top, but at this point there's just a little bit of time left in the round. Gafurov hears the clapper, so he would know that he only has to survive a little while. Now, it's one thing to get rendered unconscious by a submission attempt, but Gafurov remained conscious till the end of the round. But guess what he does? He taps with 1 second left. All you had to do was tough it out. It's not like you're gonna go unconscious, but no. The instant replay verified that he did indeed tap with 1 second left in round 3. So when you see that submission there with the time 4 minutes and 59 seconds, yes, that's accurate. It was a buzzer beater submission because Gafurov, A, has no fight IQ, and B, I guess has no mental fortitude either. I mean, all he had to do was survive 1 more second. So yeah, this guy is what we call a mental midget. Gafurov, you gotta get it figured out, man, but hey, I thought it was funny. I wasn't complaining because I cashed the Wiklacz bet. I had a unit on him. I think I got him at like minus 115, so didn't get a good price, but I'll take it. Like I was saying in the breakdown, all he has to do is just create some form of scrambles and wait for this guy Gafurov to screw up because he makes tons of mistakes, especially in the grappling realm. Then we've got Wang Tong versus Eduardo Moura. So actually, I thought this was a pretty entertaining fight. I was interested to see what Wang's grappling skills are like. Round 1, you can just tell Moura has no interest in remaining at distance with Wang, which is smart. You know, she was just pressuring forward right off the bat, kind of just stuffing Wang and not letting her get a lot off. Wang was just sort of ripping to the body, and at the very end of the round, she hurt Moura, hurt her bad. Looked like she was potentially going to finish her, but Moura ended up making it out of the round. Round 2, though, Moura starts to get a lot of her grappling going. She takes Wang down, gets her on the ground. I was actually really impressed with some of Moura's offensive wrestling here. I was also impressed with Moura's back control. Against Denise Gomes, she kind of struggled to maintain control once she got to the back. But against Wang, she was able to maintain a lot of control. So I was pretty impressed by that. I'm going to say Wang's jiu-jitsu skills, once she actually gets onto the ground, are not that great. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. But what Wang does very well is defend takedowns because she's so strong and athletic and has a basic understanding of takedown defense. She's really, really hard to get to the canvas, and that's what Moura was finding out in round 3. At that point, Moura was starting to get kind of gassed, and once she couldn't get Wang to the ground, it was all over. So after splitting the first 2 rounds, Wang managed to keep the fight upright for the most part, did a lot more damage to Moura than Moura did to her, and ended up winning the fight by unanimous decision. Even though people know Moura as a gasser, and she of course misses weight a lot, she missed weight for this fight, even though it was a weight class higher than what she used to fight at. She used to be a strawweight, now fighting at flyweight, but still pretty big for the division. I do like Moura's grappling quite a bit, so I still think she can rinse the majority of the division. If I can get her at a good price for her next fight, I'm gonna look to put a bet on her, honestly, because even with the cardio issues, I think she's really difficult to deal with. The grappling is a lot better than what we typically see in this division. Next, we've got a fight that was sort of scrapped together at the last minute. It's Javid Basharat versus Gianni Vazquez. Now, Basharat was, of course, supposed to fight Saeed Nurmagomedov, and I was kind of interested to see how that one played out. But, yeah, this wasn't a bad fight. Both guys had to battle some adversity here. Usually, you don't expect any sort of violence in a Basharat fight. They're typically kind of boring, to be honest, but no, both guys got hurt here. Basharat hurt Vazquez, and usually you don't see Basharat hurt anybody, and Vazquez hurt Basharat at one point. So now I think we've got to sort of be concerned with the durability of Basharat. You know, he got brutally slept in his last fight by Ricky Simone, then he gets hurt by Vazquez here. But Basharat definitely did a lot of things well. You know, his wrestling was a good go-to here. He had a lot of success with calf kicks, and ultimately it was sort of good to see both guys push through some adversity here because, you know, they were both hurt and in danger of being finished at points in the fight. For Vazquez, I don't think it's a bad showing in his debut. I think he did well for himself. And for Basharat, he got the win, displayed some skill, but geez, we've got to be concerned about the durability going forward. This guy does not have a great chin and can't really take a shot that well, it seems. So I imagine that's going to be a problem for him in the future. And oh boy, we got Bruna Brasil versus Ketlin Souza. If you ever watch Bruna Brasil, you know she has terrible volume. She barely does anything. In this fight, I'd say she actually threw more volume than she normally does, but you know, it didn't make a difference. Ketlin Souza was still throwing way more, being way more aggressive throughout the fight. Honestly, to me, Souza looked a bit Jessica Andrade-esque in this fight, with the way she was just coming forward, hitting those combinations. Now, I've said this before, Brazil's biggest issue is that she just can't counter. If you just charge at her with punches, if you just blitz her, she has no response. She's not going to usually clinch up. She's not going to try to shoot a takedown, and she's not going to just try to smoke you with something down the pipe. There's just not really a whole lot of answers. So that allows fighters like Souza to just come forward, winging big punches. And yeah, that's ultimately what got her the win. Brazil got round 1. She actually did pretty well. She's not a bad striker or wrestler. It's just she doesn't do enough, and she can't counter anything. So Souza ended up getting the win. I did bet Souza. I got 1 unit on her at even money, so we cashed that money line bet as well. And yeah, to be honest, I'd kind of like to see Brazil cut from the UFC at this point. Her fights just aren't entertaining. She doesn't do a lot. And I know she's been training with the Fighting Nerds. I don't know who's to blame. It's like, you would think the Fighting Nerds could help her learn to at least counter or find a way to throw more volume. If it's not the Fighting Nerds' fault, then it's probably just Brazil. She's just not meant to fight, and I'd say it's more likely that, to be honest. So, you know, I kind of like to see Brazil get cut. I got to fade her at a good price in this fight, but I don't think that's going to happen too many times in the future. I think the sports books are going to be a bit sharper, and they probably won't be having anyone as an underdog against Brazil. We've got another fight that was sort of scrapped together at the last minute. Nikolai Veretennikov versus Nico Price. So Veretennikov was supposed to fight Henrique Souza, a Brazilian guy, but he pulled out, and then the legend himself, Niko Price, the king of durability, steps in to take on the Russian. And yeah, as you can see right there, there's not much to talk about. The fight only lasted about a couple minutes. And yeah, it didn't take much for Veretennikov to render Niko Price unconscious for the most part. I mean, Price got clipped, and then that was about all she wrote. The fight got stopped soon afterward. So this was Veretenikov's 5th UFC fight. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised the UFC kept him around for this long, but it's his first finish in the UFC and really his first decisive victory at all. So yeah, good for Veretennikov. Really unfortunate for Price. I mean, the finishes are just mounting for him at this point. He's been finished like a cajillion times, and may God have mercy on his soul. That's all I'm gonna say. For the featured prelim, we had Alex Morono taking on the tough finalist, Daniil Donchenko, and you see this fight went to decision, but there's kind of an asterisk there if we're going to be honest. I mean, this fight could have been stopped. Donchenko was doing a ton of damage in round 1. He clipped Morono badly and was just creaming him on the ground, landing huge shots, but the fight never got stopped. And even later in the fight, Donchenko was doing quite a bit of damage, but not enough to get Morono out of there. You know, even though the durability of Morono is starting to wane, he is pretty mentally tough. Like, he's not going to quit in there. And again, I know Donchenko sort of sold out for a finish in the first round, which kind of made him tired. But you can see signs that this guy's cardio is not that good. I still think Donchenko's a bit overrated. He was a massive favorite for this fight, which I understand for the particular matchup. But I really don't think this guy's as good as people say he is. I don't think he has as much one-punch KO power as people believe. And yeah, the cardio is definitely going to be an issue going forward. I expect I'm going to make a lot of money fading Donchenko at some point. Once he goes against someone who's well-rounded, and in particular someone who has good conditioning and durability, I think he's going to struggle. I think someone who can pressure forward in a calculated fashion is going to be able to beat him without too much trouble. So Donchenko gets it done for now, but I expect he's going to have some trouble once he goes against some tougher competition. Now for the main card, we've got possibly the most violent fight on the card. It's Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. And yeah, just a great performance by Jacoby here. He found a lot of success with his jab and calf kick early on in the fight, just sort of piecing up Walker. Walker did land some good takedowns with a lot of amplitude. He sort of picked up Jacoby and slammed him down. But of course, Jacoby, being the seasoned veteran that he is, he just popped right back up. Not really any issues with the grappling. Then it didn't take a lot of time into round 2 for Jacoby to smoke Walker, hurt him badly with a shot. After the ref wasn't going to stop the fight immediately, Jacoby just landed some brutal follow-up shots and did a ton of damage to Walker. Eventually, the ref had no choice but to step in. This was a violent fight for sure. Walker really took a beatdown. Even though he hasn't been finished before, you sort of knew this was bound to happen. You know, he starts to slow down later in fights, and yeah, I figured Jacoby would have a good chance of KOing him as the fight drew on. Excellent performance by Jacoby. It's 3 in a row now. Not only 3 wins, but 3 knockout wins. At 37 years of age, he's really putting it together. I hope he can get back in there soon and continue his knockout streak because he's putting on entertaining fights. I love to see it. Next is John Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. And this, in my opinion, was just an incredible fight. You can see the fight went to split decision. It was very competitive. Matsumoto was doing exactly what he needed to do, which is just pressuring forward, getting after Basharat, trying to extend combinations and find the chin. He did land a lot of good shots and even got a lot of wrestling going, so people thought it was Basharat who was going to mount control time in this fight, but really Matsumoto initiated the majority of the grappling. But Basharat just did a phenomenal job. He was constantly moving, and in the second round he was peppering Matsumoto with his jab a lot. You could see Matsumoto wearing the damage really badly. His face got beat red, so you could see the impact of all the strikes from Basharat. And then of course, even though it was Matsumoto who did the majority of the wrestling, Basharat did get some well-timed takedowns, especially at the very end of the fight in round 3. The judges did give the nod to Basharat, which I don't really have a huge problem with, to be honest. Like I said, he marked up Matsumoto's face pretty badly. Did a lot of good work throughout the fight. And I just continue to be impressed by really both these guys, but especially Basharat. We now saw someone young who has a lot of stamina, quite a bit of power, get after Basharat, and Basharat responded very well. He kept his composure, he didn't get tired, and he was able to continually strike Matsumoto as he came forward. So A masterclass performance from Basharat. Really good performance overall by both these gentlemen. Really close fight, but Basharat gets it done, and again, I thought this was a phenomenal showing from both guys. Next is Mikhail Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I think everybody and their grandma thought Oleksiejczuk was going to get a KO win here. And yeah, in the first round especially, we saw him landing probably the exact strikes people saw him landing. But yeah, no, Barriault's chin, strangely, didn't crack. You know, it's been cracked several times prior to this, but nah, he wasn't even close to getting knocked out. So of course, Oleksiejczuk won round 1 just because he landed the bigger shots. If you were pulling for Oleksiejczuk, you were definitely concerned in round 2 when Barriault just turned up the heat suddenly and started trying to do a lot of work in the clinch. Oleksiejczuk's punches were losing a little bit of steam, and Barriault was just starting to mount the volume a bit. So Barriault got round 2, and you would think he would also get round 3 just because he had that momentum. But no, Oleksiejczuk actually got round 3. He never stopped throwing. He was constantly landing good strikes. I think the important factor there was the body shots. Oleksiejczuk was targeting the body a lot against Barriault. And even though Barriault has really good stamina, you could see that he was definitely slowing down. It looked like the body shots were really taking a toll on him. So that was definitely an important decision by Oleksiejczuk. He often goes to the body anyway, but investing to the midsection in this fight really paid off for him, and he managed to snag that third round. A lot of people have criticized Oleksiejczuk in the past for slowing down, so I think it's really impressive that he was able to push through, keep throwing with power throughout the entire fight. Didn't seem to get that fatigued. He even mixed in some kicks. I saw him working some body kicks, some calf kicks. Really nice to see the evolution of Oleksiejczuk after he's been training so much with the fighting nerds. I really look forward to seeing what this guy does next. I mean, I've just been really impressed with his development. A lot of people expected this to end early, but ended up being another great fight. Alright, this fight looks kind of weird on the UFC website, and I guess that's fitting because it was kind of a weird fight in general. It was Jailton Almeida taking on Rizvan Kuniev. And yeah, Jailton Almeida, the lay-and-pray king, couldn't get a single takedown. Kuniev's takedown defense was just too good. You know, we know he's very familiar with wrestling and he's very physically strong, but I was surprised that Almeida couldn't land anything. I mean, no matter what type of takedown Almeida went for, no matter how much he tried to set them up with strikes, he just couldn't catch Kuniev off guard. I mean, Kuniev had a response for everything. And a lot of people are making fun of Almeida for his striking, you know. To an extent, yes. When Almeida's striking in space, he does sort of look like a baby deer learning to walk, like he's just completely out of his element. The guy is so strong and athletic that if he really got comfortable striking, I think he could run through most of the division. I think he could hurt a lot of guys. But yeah, without being able to get the takedowns, he just wasn't able to stop Kuniev. Kuniev actually initiated clinches sometimes. You know, if Almeida ever looked like he was going to mount something on the feet, put a combination together, Kuniev would just start holding him against the fence. So Kuniev got a unanimous decision in this fight. A lot of people thought it was boring. You know, my bet was a half unit on the over 1.5 here at like minus 133. So I cashed that bet. That was my 5th bet of the card. I ended up going 4 for 5. Honestly, the right bet should have just been fight goes to decision because we weren't even close to seeing a finish in this one. Rizvan Kuniev proven to be the real deal. He made his debut against Blades. Lost by split decision, but a lot of people felt he won that fight. And now he beats Jailton Almeida. So definitely we're going to see more from Kuniev at the top of the division. Not sure where Almeida goes from here. He's already fought a lot of the guys at the top. I guess they'll have to feed him like a new up-and-comer, who he'll probably beat, to be honest, because really there aren't a ton of people who can beat this guy. This is like the first time we've ever seen someone stuff every takedown from Almeida, so really impressive strength and takedown defense from Kuniev here, although it was a pretty boring fight, most people would agree. Now we're on to the co-main event, which was Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Honestly, this one wasn't too surprising. I think it went how a lot of people expected it to go. Horiguchi was just too explosive. He would constantly explode into the pocket, and it would just be faster than Albazi, landing the more impactful strikes. He did a really good job of like dipping his head as he threw overhands so he could land on Albazi, but Albazi couldn't land on him. Albazi was wearing the damage really poorly on his face. He got really bloodied up. And yeah, I mean, once again, Albazi just sort of proves that he's not all that deserving of his ranking. Right? He was ranked like, I think, 6 going into this fight. He's not a terrible fighter. He just can't really do anything impactful. If he gets behind in a fight, I don't think he really has any options. I mean, he's not a great wrestler. He's not a powerful striker. There's not much he can do. Horiguchi continues to look sharp. It was another masterclass performance, and I'm interested to see what lies next for him. Not sure where Albazi goes after this. Finally, we've got the main event, which I was really excited to see. The betting line ended up being kind of close, but I would make the argument Bautista looked like a bigger favorite than anyone else on the card. This fight was not even close. Oliveira came in with a really questionable game plan. He wasn't being very aggressive on the feet to start off, and I think it was really important for him to try to get respect from Bautista early or even find a way to hurt him. But no, Oliveira was kind of tentative with the striking, if anything, and then he was trying to wrestle. Like, why would you try to grapple Bautista? It was Bautista we knew who had to get the wrestling going. And yeah, it just did not go well for Oliveira at all. He gassed out way sooner than I thought. The fight didn't even go into the third round, and we were already seeing Oliveira get really gassed out. Bautista completely had his way in the grappling, got some takedowns off of his own. And towards the end of the second round, he just had a beautiful transition from a Kimura to a back take. And as soon as he got back control, he just locked up a rear naked choke, and that was it. Prior to this fight, Oliveira had only lost by knockout, never by submission or decision. It looked like in this fight, though, that Bautista could have done whatever he wanted. It wasn't even close. So Oliveira's clearly going to have to go back to fighting some lower level competition. This was way too much of a step up. Yeah, Bautista called out Sandhagen at the end of the fight. So Bautista fought Sandhagen, I believe, in his UFC debut, got submitted via armbar. Sandhagen's coming off of a loss to Moura in that title match. Not sure if that rematch is going to happen, but certainly Bautista's improved significantly since when they last fought, and he definitely deserves a big fight. I mean, he's doing extremely well. The only loss in recent history is to Umar Nurmagomedov, and really he fought pretty well against Umar in my opinion. So overall, this was a really good card. Mario Bautista, I think, put on a masterclass. So yeah, Mario Bautista, just an exceptional display of skill in that fight. From a betting perspective, it wasn't too bad. The only bet I lost was the under 2.5 in the Cachoeira Sygula fight. Other than that, everything hit. You know, we got Ketlin Souza at even money. We got Jacoby Wiklacz. He pulled it off against the high IQ Gafurov. Oleksiejczuk had a good showing against Marc-Andre Barriault. And then, yeah, the over 1.5 between Almeida and Kuniev. That was pretty much free. Should have just taken fight goes. Next week, I'll have a breakdown out for UFC Houston, Strickland versus Hernandez. And honestly, I'm really liking some underdogs in that card already, so stay tuned for that one. That's it for today. I'll see you guys later. Peace.